Well, hello there, everybody. Had a chance here a few minutes to talk a little bit about the IHSAA new sectional alignments were released today, and just wanted to kind of share my thoughts on this venue as well as the written component. But definitely some big changes going into the next 2 year period. The executive committee for the IHSAA put out the basically for six sports. They'll do softball and baseball at a later date, but boys basketball, girls basketball, football, boys and girls soccer, and volleyball were realigned today. The IHSA put out the new sectional fields, and we knew there would be some changes based on how they're going to, basically how they're going to classify teams. Now it's they and this was, if you've been following, it's we knew that part of it was coming. The number of teams in 4A, instead of dividing the classes, basically, I guess an easy way to say it, between the four classes, they are now taking 20%, the largest 20% in 4A, and putting that in its own group. 25% in 3A, 25 in 2A, and then 30% in 1A. So I've had some questions even in the last few minutes. Just why is Cathedral 3A in basketball? And I think people have been following along knew that would be the case. But maybe you haven't been following, and I don't blame you. I don't follow everything myself, but that's the reason why they basically cut off 20 something teams because of the way they're aligning this now. And I think there's 81 teams in 4A basketball at this point. And that could change based on the percentages moving forward. Not this time, but as we go in the next 2 years, the number of schools could change. They could honestly, they could change the percentage. That is one thing Paul Neidig talked about previously was, by doing it this way, they could always change the percentages in future years. That's something that would have to be approved and everything and proposed, I guess, first. But you could change the percentages at some point if you felt that was necessary. Some people feel that is necessary now, that it should be a smaller percentage in 4A. I'm not against that idea myself, but at any rate, this is what it is right now. And some of in football wasn't necessarily, and I'll get to football in a minute. Football wasn't as changed as dramatically. It was just kind of the usual realignment in football, where there are some changes. There are some significant changes, not necessarily 6A, but there are some in the smaller classes for sure. And I'll get to that in a minute. But first, wanted to talk about basketball, and this is basically the same. Girls and boys basketball. And part of the reason they did this is to make these in the future, or as of now, basically, the idea is to have all these four class sectionals basically look the same. You could have some different ones, based on success factor. You may have a basketball team playing up in 4A that's not in volleyball. Obviously those have always been program specific. If you're successful and you have enough success to move up in one sport, that doesn't mean you're moving up in anything. That doesn't change. So you could have some differences, but the idea here, by doing it percentage wise and by having roughly the same amount of teams in each sport, you're going to have pretty much, the idea is to have the same teams playing in the sectional in each of the 14 sports. So I'm going to talk about basketball here, but I think it will be, the same. Girls, boys basketball basically kind of looks the same. And that's kind of the idea for a lot of the sports, is to have these, to kind of build these sexual rivalries, basically, is the idea, I think. And also the reason that they've gone to this percentage format is to address the discrepancy between the largest 4A schools and the smallest 4A schools. And they've done that to a point. Again, I think they could probably go another, cut down even farther on that percentage and cut down farther on the number of teams in 4A to address that better. But that's probably a conversation for another day. Anyway, but some of the major takeaways that I had, and I haven't gone through every sectional, admittedly, at this point yet, but some of the things that stood out. Sectional 8 in basketball, and I'd heard this in previous days, but it'll basically remain the same. Six teams: Fishers, Carmel, HSC, Noblesville, Westfield, and Zionsville will stay in that group. And I think some people thought maybe Zionsville can end up going back to where they used to be, and play those Lafayette teams in that sectional that way, and instead of making it a 6-team sectional, it'd be a 5-teamer, and you could have done that, based on what it came out being. Sectional 7, which is Lafayette, Harrison, Kokomo, Lafayette, Jeff, and McCutcheon, that's a 4-team sectional. So it would have been real easy to send Zionsville that direction if that's what you wanted to do. And again, I don't know, I don't fully know the reason. And I will say, I'm a little surprised that there are this many 6-team sectionals in 4A and this many 4-team sectionals in 4A. I thought there would be maybe whatever it would be, one 6-team section. I forget what the number exactly came out to be, but I thought there would basically be full of 5-team sectionals in 4A. There was not, and I had that written down here. I believe there are so in 4A there's six. There's 5 6-team sectionals. There are 4 4-team sectionals. So the remaining 7 are 5-team sectionals. So I thought there would be more 5A. So that's an argument I've already heard in my in my text messages and some other areas and on social media. But the 4-team sectionals you ended up with having, there's 3 right together. Carroll, Fort Wayne Northside, Fort Wayne Northrop, Fort Wayne Snyder, that's a 4-teamer. Fort Wayne Southside, Fort Wayne Wayne, Homestead, and Huntington North, that's a 4-teamer. And then Harrison, Kokomo, Lafayette, Jeff, and McCutcheon, that's a 4-teamer. So understandable, they kind of kept those Fort Wayne schools together. Again, like I said, you probably could have sent Zionsville the other direction if you wanted to do that. I get why you wouldn't, though, also, because those teams are in the same sectional. Because they're close in proximity and they're rivals, and they're in the same conference except for Carmel. But Carmel feels like they're a lot similar with those teams as well. So, and then the sectional 9 also very minor change there. Sectional 9 will now be a 6-teamer as New Pal moves down to 3A. So you lose New Pal, which has been the champion there in that sectional. So that it'll be Anderson, Greenfield Central, Mount Vernon, Muncie Central, Pendleton Heights, and Richmond. That's a really good grouping there. That will remain the same, like I said, except for New Pal, which moves down based on their enrollment. So they were in that same grouping with Cathedral, Roncalli, some of those schools that moved down to 3A. That's the reason they based on this new way they classify teams. It cut off about 20 schools at the bottom of 4A and sent them to 3A, which makes 3A, and I'll get to that in a minute, but very difficult. Sectional 10 in 4A, you lose Cathedral and Attucks. So Attucks also moved down to 3A. That used to be a 7-teamer, and of course sectional 10 we always look at that when the sectional draw comes out. Very tough sectional. It still will be, but it'll look a lot different. Tech, LC, LN, North Central, and Warren. So it remains the same except for those 2 teams you lost to 3A. Will still be really good. I mean, those teams all should be good teams next year. All might be, you could argue probably better than they were this year. One of the bigger changes, though, they sent the Terre Haute schools, which had been with Brownsburg, Plainfield, and Avon, and they moved them into sectional 13, which is Bloomington North, Bloomington South, Martinsville, and the 2 Terre Hautes now. So, that made a significant change to the whole alignment, and affected several teams around here, which now makes sectional 11. Ben Davis and Pike stay in there, but they're going to be joined by Avon, Brownsburg, and Plainfield. So that's a 5-teamer now in sectional 11 that look way different than it has been. So it also heard that could be possibly happening, but that'll change the dynamics pretty significantly in that sectional. And then that leaves sectional 12. Center Grove actually moves into that one, and also with Decatur Central, Franklin Central, Mooresville, Perry, and Southport. So a lot of those schools had been in with Ben Davis previously. Center Grove, roughly takes their spot there. That not exactly how that worked, but and then with Roncalli moving down, that opened up another spot as well. So that one looks different. And then the other local one is Franklin and Whiteland. They're in sectional 14 now. With Columbus East, Columbus North, and East Central. So that one changed again. We've had some changes in that area where Center Grove seems like they've bounced around a little bit into different sectionals, and now they're in another different one, kind of back with Franklin Central now. So yeah, there's a lot of change. I think maybe the biggest change there is probably the one with Ben Davis and Brownsburg and Pike and Plainfield and Avon. That'll be a real. All those teams should be really good next year. Avon was sectional champ in their sectional, which is now different. Ben Davis, of course, won state 2 years ago, made it back last year. So yeah, that'll be, and probably a better. I would say that's just a better overall situation. I would say those schools driving all the way to Terre Haute to play in a sectional, just not a great situation. Nothing against Terre Haute. It's just a pretty far flung. There's no one really that makes sense for them to be with, basically, just because of their size and their geography, just kind of the way it is, kind of similar to like a Richmond. So, but anyway, so that's how it looks in 4A. Basically, those are some of the major changes, and then 3A, like I mentioned, a lot of differences there. Because of the schools you had moving down, and I'd seen a lot of conjecture about what the 3A sectional locally was going to look like, and I heard yesterday that Addix and Cathedral were going to be in a different sectional than Brebeuf and Guerin. Had heard differently on that previously, but then yesterday heard that was the case, and that turned out to be true. Sectional 25 now will be Brebeuf Jesuit with Danville, Guerin, Lebanon, Tri-West, Frankfort, and Crawfordsville. So very good group there. That's a 7-teamer. Danville, of course, been really good over the years. Guerin's had a lot of success here lately. Brebeuf, of course, has been good. Tri-West should be good again next year. They've been very solid. The Lebanon, of course, has been good historically. So, yeah, just a really solid group there. And then sectional 26 is where Addix and Cathedral both landed, and they'll be with Bishop Chatard, Heron, Shortridge, Purdue Poly, and that's it. So that'll be a 6. Am I missing somebody? That'll be a 6-teamer there. So those schools, Addix and Cathedral, of course, have battled as city, the top teams in the city here recently. Addix has won 2 in a row in the city, but Cathedral won state 2 years ago. So they go from 4A to 3A. That's maybe the biggest change in all this is Cathedral's back to being a 3A basketball program, and that's that's tough for a lot of these schools battling in 3A. But we knew that was the case. Those who've been following it, I think, knew that was going to happen. Just a matter of where they landed. And then the other local 3A fields, you have George Washington in a section with Speedway, Cascade, Edgewood, and Northview and Owen Valley. So that's a really far-flung sectional there. That's a 6-teamer, but kind of all over the map there. You got Washington and Speedway going with some schools, and Cascade out there in western Hendricks County with some schools that aren't nearly as close by. So, and then sectional 28, you'll have Beech Grove, New Pal, and Roncalli. That's both where they landed in coming down to 3A, along with Greenwood, Indian Creek, Rushville, and Shelbyville. So that'll be a 7-teamer there in sectional 28. So that's kind of what that looks like. I know there's a lot of other changes. I'm not going to just talk about every single sectional here, but just touching on some of the major, changes in basketball, especially. And then 2A, and I was interested to see how this one worked out too. Park Tudor's been kind of they return a lot. Were really good last year. Almost beat Brownstown Central, which ended up winning state. And they had, they'll be in a sectional that includes Covenant Christian, Ritter, Monrovia, Riverside, and University in sectional 42 and 2A. And then sectional 43 also changed a little bit with Crystal House, Eastern Hancock, Heritage Christian, Cecina, Irvington, and Triton Central in that one. So that'll be another good one. A lot of teams that I think will be improved going into next year in that one. And then also up above in kind of the northern part of sectional it'll be sectional 39, Class 2A. It'll be Frankton, LaPel, Sheridan, Taylor, Tipton, and Elwood. That's a really tough sectional there. Tipton should be really good again. LaPel should also be really good. Yeah, and they'll be battling head-to-head. Sheridan's been on the come-up, and they'll have a lot coming back next year as well. So that one looks good as well. And then 1A's just got a lot of you just have a lot of teams in there, just the way things are designed now. So these will be a lot of different ones too. And you can look at all this. So we link to it all on our story on IndyStar.com. It's on the IHSAA site as well, so you can find it all there. But yeah, I'm not going to go through all these. One thing that did, I was curious to see how it worked out. The sectional with Tinley and Greenwood Christian and Bethesda ended up making it to the state championship this year, and they're in sectional 54 now. So Bethesda in with Carroll, Flora, Clinton Central, Clinton Prairie, Frontier, Rossville, and Traders Point. So that's a little bit of a difference from what they've been in previous years. That's a little bit of a traveling situation for Bethesda and Traders Point, for that matter. They'll be kind of going more north than they used to. And then sectional 57 and 58 changed a little bit as well. Tinley's now in with a different grouping with Anderson Prep, Indiana Math and Science, Indiana Deaf, International, Liberty Christian, and then MTI School of Knowledge and Purdue Polytech Broad Ripple campus. So Tinley in a little bit different one, and then the one they used to be in with Lutheran now has they're in with Greenwood Christian as well still, and then Central Christian Eminence, Metropolitan, which has been good, Providence Cristo Rey, and Victory Prep. So that's probably looks like it'll be strong, kind of top heavy again in that one. So that'll be sectional 58. And then I was looking down a little bit farther too, like sectional 63, which used to be Bar Reeve, Lagodi, and those schools that's now sectional 62. So just for the sake of just my curiosity was looking at that. That'll be Bar Reeve, Lagodi, North Davies, Orleans. So you still got really that'll be exceptional still. Just a little bit of a geography switch with that, just because of the number of teams that are in 1A, and then also, excuse me, Medora, Shoals, Vincennes Reveille, and Washington Catholic are in that one. So yeah, that's pretty much how it looks in basketball. Excuse me, I had to cough there, but yeah, so that's pretty much how it looks in basketball. So had some was curious about football as well, and again in excuse me. So in football in 6A, there's some minor changes, I would say, and basically only on the north side of the bracket, where you now have Carmel, Harrison. Harrison moved up. They're a 6A program now, so that kind of created a little bit of change. So it's Carmel, Harrison, Westfield, and Zionsville. Harrison replaces Noblesville, which is now in a different sectional with Fishers, HSC, and Homestead. So that one will look a little bit different. It's basically the same teams on that side of the bracket, except for Harrison moving in. The south half of 6A basically remains as it was previously, and I can go through that for you here. It's and I didn't even put that in the story just because I think people are probably pretty familiar with how that looks. But for instance, sectional 5 is Avon, BD, Brownsburg, and Pike. That's the same. 6 is Cathedral, Lawrence Central, Lawrence North, and North Central. 7 is Tech, Perry, Southport, and Warren, and then 8 is Center Grove, Columbus North, Franklin Central, and Jeffersonville. So really no changes on that front in football, at least in the south side of the bracket. And like I said, some pretty minor changes on the north side. So not a ton there. There are some differences in 5A. You ended up with Whiteland moving into the same sectional. So Whiteland moves into the same sectional with Decatur Central, Plainfield, and Anderson. So that's a little bit different. Whiteland moving into that one, and that leaves Franklin with East Central, Columbus East, and Seymour. East Central's moving up after winning state due to the tournament success factor. So they're in 5A now. I apologize. I'm coughing up a lung here for some reason, but not sick or anything. I don't know what the deal is, but anyway, so you end up with Franklin, Columbus East, East Central, and Seymour in 5A. Some of the more bigger differences you'll see down are a little bit farther down. In 4A, sectional 22 now, You'll have Brebeuf, Danville, Chittard, Addix, Shortridge, Mooresville, Northview, and Roncalli. That is absolutely loaded sectional 22. Danville, obviously, they've been really good. Chittard moves up from 3A after winning state. Brebeuf, should be, they've been good, going to be good again this year. Roncalli, of course, currently doesn't have a coach, but they're going to be always very good. Northview's been solid. Mooresville, of course, has been good. So that's a really tough sectional. And then sectional 21 will look like this. You'll have Beech Grove, Greenfield Central, Mount Vernon, Newcastle, New Pal, Pendleton Heights, Richmond, and Yorktown. So some changes there. Like I said, partly based on because of the tournament success factor and Chittard moving up. So like I said, football wasn't affected by this sort of the redoing of how they're classifying teams, but there are some changes as well. So again, you can find more on that. And another one to point out too is Lutheran moving up after winning state 3 years in a row in 1A. They're going to be in 2A, and that's a really good sectional as well. That'll be sectional 37 in Class 2A. Crystal House, Covenant Christian, Heritage Christian, Ritter, Lutheran, Cecina, Monrovia, Park Tudor. So, again, really tough one. And then sectional 38 in 2A, that's where Eastern Hancock, LaPel, Triton Central, some of the other local teams are in that one. So, like I said, not a ton of changes there, but there are some definitely. And again, you can find all that. Not going to go into all that necessarily right now, just because it's not, I just read off a piece of paper basically. So, but those are some of the big ones. I will say, I know it's frustrating for people sometimes. They just, they see what they got and it doesn't make sense geography wise sometimes. I know it's I've tried to map all this out. Not this year, I didn't do it, but I've done it before. It's hard to do, but I do, I do sense, it's sometimes frustrating for people because they don't see the transparency in the process and what exactly, you just sort of end up with what you end up with. But I get on both sides of it. It's hard to do it, and it's hard to, sometimes when you see your alignment, you're either happy based on your own situation and nothing else, and that's completely understandable as well. But yeah, so that's kind of how it lays out. Again, I think this will be something in the future. We'll see what it looks like as far as how they classify these classes. It'll be, I don't know if 20%. Like I said, I think it could be a smaller number. Would make more sense, to kind of condense that discrepancy from largest 4A to smallest 4A, but it's easier said than done, and I think maybe this sets you on track to do that in the future. But obviously some big changes. I think it'll be, it'll look a lot different, especially in basketball with this many 4-team sectionals and this many 6-teamers and 5-teamers. You just won't have as many weeknight games. These 4-teamers won't have any weeknight games, so that'll be something different. There's no 7-teamers in 4A anymore, so it'll just be one night during the week you'll play, and then you'll play on the weekend, Friday and Saturday. So that will change as well. But already gone longer, and I've coughed more than I expected to during this. I apologize for that. But again, the IHSAA proposals we got, or the IHSAA, also the proposals we wrote about yesterday. The ones that passed, the ones that didn't, you can look for that. The girls wrestling and boys volleyball both passed, so that was kind of the big news from yesterday. The beach volleyball proposal that it wasn't about beach volleyball, but it was about being able to play beach volleyball during the indoor volleyball season did not pass, and looked like it was not close, even in the straw poll and I went to one of those. And it wasn't close in that one either. So that got voted down pretty roundly. And there's some other ones. Again, you can look for that. I posted that story yesterday and posted stuff last week too, just kind of letting people know that was coming. But again, it's realignment time, and either happy or not, I guess, about what you've got, and so we'll see. But yeah, I appreciate you joining me here, and we'll talk to you next time.